Spotify's attention span, and Apple Pay. This is MacVoices. This edition of MacVoices is supported by the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter to keep you up on all the latest from MacVoices. Watch or listen to MacVoices straight from your email client. Sign up at macvoices.com/newsletter and stay up to date. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, this is MacVoices Live. In case you weren't sure, it's Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, a few minutes after 5 p.m. Pacific. That means it's a few minutes after whatever time it is wherever you are. I'm not sure what that means, but it sounded consistent. We're in the chat rooms and live on YouTube at youtube.com/MacVoicesTV. We would love to have you join us if you're within the sound of my voice. And if not, then set an alarm next week and remember to join us then, because we do this every Tuesday night at exactly the same time. We have an interesting panel tonight. We have a number of interesting topics, and it's a time of year where there's not a lot of specific Apple news, but there are a number of interesting things going on out there. So this is going to be sort of a potpourri night. Of course, that's what I thought last week, and we ended up only covering 2 topics. So we'll see what happens. So to introduce everyone that's here, and we'll get going. I'm going on my screen, as I always do. First up, Mr. Jim Ray. Jim, it's good to have you, as always.
Yay, I'm first.
You're first.
First
You're
post.
And they're
okay.
off.
Yeah, okay. David Ginsburg is here, sporting a new version of the Mac stock hat. David, great to have you as well.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me, and happy Tuesday, and always look forward to this conversation.
Yes, and Mike Potter is in the chat room. I think he still is there. I believe so. And so, Mike, get in here. You know how to get the information. Get in here with us. We always enjoy having you.
Bring your hat.
But bring your yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Getting out of a sick bed again, Mr. Warren Sklar. Warren, go ahead. I hope that you're feeling better. Glad that you feel good enough to at least join us.
I'm living La Vida COVID again.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it loves me. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but it likes me for some reason. But yeah, it started and it's stopping now. So I think tomorrow. I've been off work since Monday. So then I have a planned vacation next week with the family. So if I could stretch this COVID thing out another 2 days, I'm getting like a 12-day, 13-day weekend. So that's where I'm going.
Warren, one of the tricks to that is to not announce it on MacVoices Live.
Do you think there's anybody from my company watching this back? I think we'll be safe.
Well, they should be.
They should be. But they're all Windows.
Hiding in plain sight.
No, they're all Windows admin. The IT. I work for the same IT desk that Dave, I'm sure, works for. Nobody likes Apple. Everybody we talked about last week. They secretly like Apple, but they all like Windows and they make fun of us. So
yeah. Well, maybe they're secretly watching. Who knows?
You never know.
Jeff Gamet and I just finished recording an episode of Let's Talk Apple with Bart Buchatz I guess about an hour and a half ago, give or take. And now Jeff is here again. He just can't get enough.
It's true, Chuck. I mean, when it comes to you, I can't get enough.
I'm sure sorry for you, Jeff.
I'm getting a double Chuck fix today.
Which means you won't have to look at it the rest of the week.
Isn't double chuck when you throw up? I double chucked that.
No.
No, it's on the secret menu at In-N-Out Burger.
Or chucked up, maybe.
Last but absolutely not least, sporting a background that, Mark, I'm not going to steal your thunder. I'll let you explain as if anybody needs it.
Oh, so Lieutenant Uhura, famous Star Trek personality, an actress named Nichelle Nichols in real life, passed away over the weekend or maybe Friday. Sad event. She had a number of on-screen firsts. I think one of them was being a first African-American in a recurring role. And then second, was first interracial kiss with William Shatner. And then many decades later, Futurama, sort of memorialized her. So she's had quite a career. People want to know more about it. The Star Trek, blog, by John Champion, and used to be hosted by Ken Ray. They had an interview with her, 4 or 5 years ago or so. So sad events, passing the guard. I think she was like 89, just short of her 90th birthday. So let's pay her some tribute.
Agreed.
She is the reason why the U.S. space program included astronauts that were not just white guys. She was out actively recruiting for the astronaut program.
Cool.
Yeah, she did a lot of good in a lot of different ways, and it's a little jarring to see how many of the original crew are gone. Major actors and actresses and minor in that series. So time marches on, unfortunately.
Well, George Takei is quite active on Twitter, and
Yes, he is.
William Shatner is still around. So
And Walter Koenig, excuse me, is out there as well. So yeah.
Yeah, so Mission Log was the name of the podcast. So I'm sure a lot of the audience members here are aware of it or even listening to it. But certainly dial back into their back catalog and listen to the interview with Nichelle Lieutenant Uhura Nichols.
Yeah. Guys, as I introduced it, Apple News is a little bit slow, specifically Apple News, but there are a few things that jumped out at me, but there are also some non-Apple things that I wanted to bring in. And one, honestly, it happened, or I came out right after last week's show and I forgot about it. And then Bart mentioned it on his show when Jeff and I were on, and I thought, I got to bring it here and turn this loose on this group. I'm throwing it in the chat rooms now. But Spotify was manufacturing something called the Car Thing, that was a Spotify device for your car. And surprise, they've discontinued it. I think I remember it being announced. I don't know anybody that ever bought one. I don't know anybody that even really paid that much attention to it, and now they've discontinued it.
I almost bought one. It was not expensive.
Of course you did.
Yeah, of course you did.
I was waiting for that.
At Best Buy.
Yeah, at Best Buy. But I also have a Tesla that doesn't have CarPlay, and this was advertised as sort of the in-between. But as you read through it, it wasn't a good in-between. So it was actually supposed to be for cars that didn't have really CarPlay or an integrated system like that. And it kind of hooked into your Bluetooth. And I had also an Alexa device that did pretty much the same thing. They made Roar was one. You might know what that one too. But there's devices you put in the car to act as an in-between between your phone and the Bluetooth system of your car. And that's what this did. It basically was passing through. And, that's all it was. And it was a stupid idea because it didn't do much other than that. But if I didn't buy one, then obviously there's your gauge. So I didn't get one.
But Warren, there's probably great closeout offers available.
Yeah. I don't even know if they support the thing. I don't know.
Still continue to support. Who knows?
Yeah. So again, Amazon did it too. Amazon was coming out with their same version of basically Alexa through the car stereo, and they had a Rove unit that you could buy, and then they were also coming out with their Amazon Auto, which you had to be on their list to do, and you had to be first come first serve, and it kind of ended up doing okay. And now it's pretty cheap; it's like $25-$30, but basically all it is,
it's $19 now.
Is it really? Yeah. So I mean, exactly. So it's like this thing that, again, it's an intermittent piece between your phone and the car's Bluetooth system that lets you do more with it.
It's not a surprise that this is gone, I don't think. But speaking to a larger issue, though, it seems like Spotify just keeps trying things. And when they aren't instant hits, they drop them. And it's yeah, but I don't know. I mean, Dave, I'll ask you. Is this? It feels like some of this stuff is not well thought out. It's like, oh yeah, let's do this. This sounds like a good idea. And then when it turns out not to be a hit, then we'll drop it and we'll just try this other thing. And then we'll try something else.
No, it isn't well thought out. And Spotify trying to be the dominant player in the music streaming, they are technically, but there's a lot of other better services out there besides us, being kind of biased with Apple Music. But the same thing happened with podcasts and playing podcasting, and they Spotify got into that, and they got their exclusives. And then, I talked about this during my presentation, Macstock. You got people like Sirius XM who buy Pandora, who buy the Stitcher, and then they're trying to incorporate their podcasts and stuff and seeing how they can get things going. Stitcher is it doesn't even basically exist. It's basically like a podcast player, which is just kind of sad because it was, they were doing music too. So I don't know what Spotify's thinking is, and they continue to bleed money. So I mean, they have to do something to bring the profit in, and I just don't get it. Yeah, they've got the dominance in subscribers, but I don't see the quality of the content compared to the other players.
The content is generally speaking pretty much the same across all of the services. So yeah, they have to find other ways to really differentiate themselves. Spotify already had a much better way to differentiate themselves. Their playlist features are far superior to anything that Apple offers. Mm-hmm. And I mean, to me, that's why you go to Spotify. It's because you want their playlist stuff, not because you want a piece of hardware that is so poorly thought out that Warren looks at it and says, "Yeah, I'm not going to buy this." I mean, that right there. That's a serious litmus test. I'm going to use the Warren scale from this point forward.
Yeah.
When I look at hardware products, and I'm guessing on the Warren scale, the Microsoft Kin is a qualified failure. Did you buy one, Warren?
Or the Zoom?
I did not buy a Zoom. I worked on a few of them, and I did not do that. And the Kin was that phone that was at that kind of little
the phone that was out for about a week.
Yeah. No, I remember that one too. No, those did not end up in the drawer. So yes.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a good limit test on that one too. So,
but yeah, I mean, Spotify they have a solid product that has a feature that is superior to anything that Apple's doing in the music space. And my feeling is they should be really promoting that more as opposed to experimenting with creating a hardware interface for your car when you already have a phone with the interface on it.
It feels like, and Jeff, you started out by saying, the content is pretty much across the board. The playlist, okay, that's one way to differentiate things. Apple has tried it, is trying it, continues to try it, I guess, with Apple One. As far as having something that's differentiating it, in the term in what's the best way to say it? I guess like a radio station where you have the live DJs and allegedly they're the tastemakers, as if a DJ isn't being told what to play at this stage of the game. I'd be shocked if there's any DJ out there anywhere that's not being given a specific playlist and said, "Here, play this or else."
Well, I think most of the DJs they aren't even handling the playing; they're just recording the intersticials.
Yeah. And got to be like some kind of analytics playing the music at this point. I don't even think a DJ is making the choice. Well, there's some kind of counter, and there's no DJ at the Spotify or Apple Music stations unless it's the specific ones that have a guest DJ, like the Apple Beats has Elton John and things like that. But I don't think if you tune into a Spotify station, I don't think there's an actual human that's sitting behind that stream. To be honest with you. And I think with Spotify that difference is the free tier, and again, there's no Apple free tier.
True.
So, if they threw this thing to a bunch of kids who have Spotify free for like $10, and when you went bought a Happy Meal and they included it, and put it in your car and it'll play music, you might have done it right, because basically a lot of kids, probably wouldn't care. But to go out and buy whatever it was, $80 for it, didn't make sense.
Yeah, but I'm getting away from the device itself, but just looking at, how Spotify is trying to differentiate itself. I mean, they spent a ridiculous amount of money on Joe Rogan. Then do I have this right? Then they signed up the Obamas. Then they signed up, was it Prince Harry? And Meghan Markle?
I think it was Netflix.
Was it Netflix?
Yeah, Netflix signed up both. Netflix signed up Prince Harry and also the Obamas. And the Obama thing with Netflix expired, and then they went to Spotify.
Oh, they did go to Spotify. Okay, all right, then I'm wrong. But it just has this feel of there's nobody steering the ship, or sticking with anything to try to make it actually happen. So, does anybody subscribe here to Spotify?
No.
No. Okay. Nobody here. Anybody in the chat room? I'll ask you all. If there's anybody in the chat room.
I do know people. I have friends that have Spotify subscriptions, and I'll tell you, every single one of them has a Spotify subscription instead of Apple Music because of the playlist features.
And are they paid tier or free tier, Jeff?
Paid.
Okay.
Jeff, when you say playlist features, I mean, not to be smart about it, how many features can a playlist have? It's a playlist.
Okay, so that's actually a really good question. Having a playlist that you create yourself, I mean, that's something that all of the players do. Now, playlists that intelligently learn based on what's in the playlist, what you may like, and then can add to that playlist for you. That's a Spotify thing. The group playlists where you and your friends can all very easily add to a single playlist, that's another Spotify thing. So if you want more than just, I'm going to make my own little playlist here, then you go to Spotify.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I looked at. I've been looking closer to the Apple playlist lately. I was listening for the other night. I was setting up a new Apple TV down in my family room, and I stumbled upon the playlist that you can get on the Apple TV listening to music. I was like, oh, this is great, and it was pleasantly surprised that the curation I think has gotten better on Apple Music. I'm not saying it's great, but I think the curated playlists that they have on the different types of genres, I thought were well executed.
Yeah, I agree. And for those curated playlists, it is actually people that are deciding what go into those playlists.
Webb in the chat room has said that he subscribes to Spotify, and when I ask him why, he says he gets to listen to it in his Tesla. So there you go. That's a good reason. Apple Music.
Comment on that one.
That's a good reason right there.
Yeah.
It ties into that and a couple other TuneIn and a few others. But I'll tell you what, if I just, I don't know what it's connected to, but if I hit a button on my Tesla and say play this song, it does a hell of a lot better job than Apple Music ever does playing the song they ask it to play. So,
well, and something that's faded from our minds is Pandora. Pandora is still out there, and I still think
European.
that
it's very European.
If I give Pandora, if I feed it one or two songs, it still gives me a superior playlist to anything else that I've come across, and a playlist of things that I may never have heard of, probably would never have heard of if it hadn't put them in front of me. But then I end up liking them. So.
Well, that's what they're trying to do, discoverability.
Mm-hmm.
It's all fun and games until your partner says, what the hell is playing? Turn this off, and why we're listening to this. And then you have to find something else. Otherwise, it's...
you can work through that with your therapist.
Oh, no, my therapist says listen to your wife and change the freaking station to something she wants to hear.
There you go. See, work through it with the therapist.
Yeah. Brian just asked Webb in the chat room if Apple Music was available. Pardon me, was available in an Apple in your Tesla. Would you subscribe to Spotify? And he said, probably not, since I am also an Apple One subscriber. So okay,
it's available on the Tesla through your phone, like anything else. I mean,
yeah. So fair point, Webb. Next up, this one is an Apple story, although it's, as usual, it's an Apple bashing story, and I'm throwing it into the chat rooms right now. This is by Philip Elmer-DeWitt, and it's a complaint that Apple Pay charges credit card companies monopoly rents. And the insert here says card issuers pay a reported $1 billion annually in fees on Apple Pay and $0 for accessing functionally identical Android wallets.
Oh.
Mark, I was waiting for you to jump in with something more than a yawn.
Yeah, I think I know the story. It was filed by a small credit union. Actually, I didn't really dig much to do due diligence on the credit union, but they were complaining about having to pay fees to Apple. The reality is, in the article, they point out that, or maybe an article linked from that article, that it's like half a penny for a transaction for a credit card, 0.15 pennies for a debit card transaction. And I think debit card transactions are just higher all across the board. So it's sort of, okay, well, Apple built the system. They have infrastructure that provides it, right? All of these generation of unique, card IDs and session IDs and things that make us, confident in wanting to use, Apple Pay, has costs associated with it. And I'm willing to pay half a penny a transaction, for the benefit of that versus, having my credit card shut down because I dipped it into a gas pump that had a card scammer in it, and this happened to me a couple of years ago. So, I think that to me it's just a credit union that's looking for a publicity stunt in order to work with members or whatever, however they would benefit by becoming a better known name. But I just don't think that, they really have much of a ground to stand on. And the fact that Google Pay and Samsung Pay, can't do it, well, that just, I think, is an indication that, their customers are not attractive to the financial institutions and infrastructure who's willing to pay, half a penny per transaction. And oh, by the way, when you think about Visa or MasterCard, Visa, every card says Visa on it, but the debt is underwritten by a bank. All Visa does is a combination of branding, and ultimately the service it delivers is transactions over its network. So it has no credit risk. It just provides a virtual credit highway under which money moves around, and they take a transaction fee for each of it. And that's what is happening with Apple Pay. And if some companies don't like it, well, just don't play and stand on the sidelines, as initially a lot of Walmart and other retailers did, until they had to capitulate because Apple Pay is attractive to lots of people who spend a lot of money. So, I think at the very end of the article, I think it was, Philip Elmer-DeWitt, put in a comment. I think he says, my take, I want to compete against Apple in fintech. And that's kind of where I think it is. They're a big monster. They offer a very valuable service that's widely accepted. And, some people want it for free. Well, we live in a capitalist world, so that's free.
I have to kind of wonder with the business model of credit unions these days. It was they were very popular, a while back. And then I have a credit union account, but I don't use it because I like the bigger banks that I have accounts with because they're attractive in their services. They're behind in technology. That's the thing. A lot of these credit unions, you go to their site, you log into their app. I mean, my gosh, it's I feel like it's from the early 2000s. It's just so behind on the technology. And then the fact of the matter that Apple Pay just makes things so much easier, with it being on your watch or your iPhone or just going up to a terminal or doing it online, it just makes it so much easier, making worth the value of what they charge. I mean, I don't think that's an unfair fee that they're charging. And I agree with you, Mark. It's that, but I kind of have to question the business model of credit unions these days. Some are probably very popular and some are not.
So weren't they? I mean, historically, weren't they member owned or something?
Yeah, they were member owned, and they were
there was a whole "It's a Wonderful Life" scare,
Yeah.
right? Basically, it's a credit union scam with the run on the banks. So they decided instead of having people lend to us, we're just all going to contribute as members. And that's when
then they would link to companies. They would
link to companies, and
Yeah.
I used to work for the state of New Jersey, and that was a perk, right? So this was in the early almost 2000s, even before 1990s. But at that point, working for a place that got you into a credit union was a thing. Like
Right.
if you got into a credit, because I think at that point they had better rates for stuff. They had better mortgages, better loans. Cheaper accounts. I think you could open up savings accounts for free where other banks were charging crazy amounts. But today, I don't know.
Which has since changed, because a lot of banks out there, they're not charging.
Yep.
But maybe I took the wrong message out of this, but the first thing that jumped out to me, especially the part I just read, was that, okay, Apple's charging, the others aren't, the Android wallets aren't. You better, at least in my opinion, you better believe if they could charge and make any money out of it, they would. They are not charging because they are trying to get to get the Android wallets and all the other options to have more traction against Apple Pay. And, so the credit unions or anyone else is not really willing to support it because Apple Pay is so dominant.
I mean, what about opening up Apple Pay to Android users? Which would solve all this, right? Because the only reason they're really competing, if Apple Pay becomes the dominant method of electronic payments, which is what they're fighting, right? This is the story is kind of saying that others are trying to compete, but they can't compete. It's basically we accept Apple Pay, big on sign and in little letters. Also, Samsung Pay, whatever. It's not dominant, so is that going to be a problem? So if they become the dominant and others go away, does Apple allow non-Apple devices to use Apple Pay?
Well, that's a fascinating question, Warren. To me, it's a lot analogous to putting, iTunes on Windows, and we'll have to see. I'm waiting for some of the reputable market research companies to come out and talk about, how much switching is going on from Android users into iPhone users, because it was a topic of pride at last week's earnings call. And I would think at some point, I've got to believe that Apple has prototypes of that working in super secret labs that they haven't shown us on their videos, at their launch events yet. And I'm just being humorous, but I've got to believe that they actually do have prototypes up and running. And it's probably just a question of time, because to the extent that they want to drive their services revenue forward, yes, if they could offer those values and they have the proven ability that they can monetize and take a transaction out of it, I think it would make sense to put it onto Android devices. And as you were asking the question, Warren, I was thinking, what's the logical point for them to do it? Is maybe are they when they're 2/3 of the smartphone market or 70%? But I think something when they have a bigger share now. So instead of sort of being a teeter-totter, it's a little bit clear. You have a strong Apple, and they have the minority, and then it's just another tool to educate all the other people, and ultimately maybe bring them into the Apple ecosystem, or if not, give them a benefit, or to quote, misalign that famous Steve Jobs quote, let's give a glass of ice water to a guy in hell. It's just like, here's an analogy to, Mac OS to Apple. To Windows.
That makes total sense. I mean, Samsung and Google will not be happy if Apple opens up Apple Pay to the Android users, but Android users probably would be happy with it. I would imagine that a lot of Samsung users would be more than happy to use their Samsung phone for Apple Pay if they could. I don't see any reason they wouldn't.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't either. Jeff, I'll let you say why. I think you're reading my mind.
Security.
Of course, Apple would like to have more people in their ecosystem. But from their perspective, giving people an Apple exclusive perk feature like Wallet on their Android phone, I just don't see that happening. I mean, if that was the tactic Apple was going to take, then I think we would already have iMessage on Android, and that's never going to happen.
Any money-making service is cross-platform. Most of their money-making services go to Android. Apple Music, you could watch. I think there's other services on Android phone that, if you pay for it, and if it's a service, they'll let you do it. iMessage and Apple Pay. Apple Pay is a service, so Apple Pay would be something that they would have an interest to do that. It's not like they're giving them iMessage for free, because iMessage, we like you. We're giving you Apple Pay because, hey, we're per the story, we're getting some money every time somebody clicks that little clicky thing.
I totally appreciate what you're saying, and yet I think this is one place where Apple won't do that. I think they'll hold the wallet feature close to their chest to make it yet another thing to draw people into the Apple ecosystem.
Jeff, I'm surprised at you because you weren't reading my mind.
Oh, okay.
Nobody has brought up the aspect of the privacy of Apple transactions compared to Android.
Security. I did bring it up. So the security, not the privacy, but security mostly, right?
Well,
the chip.
both.
Right. Isn't the Apple Pay completely encrypted, securely tripped with the new
it uses secure enclave. You're right.
So right, the secure enclave. So then for them to open it up, that's going to be the hurdle, right? So they're not going to be able to put it on. It's going to be only available on certain Android, Google devices, I think, or Android devices. If it was available.
Yeah, if I'm not even sure that's possible, but if they do, then it would make a certain amount of sense, except for Jeff's argument. But there's also the little integration of Apple Pay and your iPhone with your Apple Watch, so that you really don't even have to use your phone. You can use the watch. So there are a number of different factors here that I think make it, having it be an Apple exclusive, make it a very definite value add. And especially the privacy aspect of it, or security aspect.
Yeah, so I could argue counterpoints against some of that. So net result is we don't know. We're speculating, because Apple could be, if you want to add it to the watch, you need to have an iPhone, so they could just offer a subset of services out there. So I don't know. We'll have to see. I think I agree with Warren. There's a difference between services, like music that you're paying for that's now becoming available on other devices versus things like, Apple Pay, where you're paying for it on a per transaction basis that might or might not want to be kept entirely to Apple. So again, it depends how competition emerges, which is why I think that once it's clear that Apple has crunched the competition, that's when they might roll it out and throw a glass of ice water to those poor suffering guys.
Next time on MacVoices, this panel continues their discussion of Apple Pay and the credit card industry in general. Then the heat really gets turned up when we start talking about the Secret Service claiming that iMessage caused them to lose critical text messages. That's next time on MacVoices. I hope you'll join us. Until then, and as always, I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.